let's think about like construction industry psychology. Why do people go into the construction industry? Why do they get the degrees they get and go into the industry? It's because they like safe. They like safety, right? You get an engineering degree because there's always engineering jobs. If you want to take a lot of risk, go get an art history degree. There's a lot of risk in an art history. Engineering, though, being the kid of an Indian father, right, that was also a civil engineer. Nope, engineer or doctor. Why is that? It's because you can always get a job, right? There's always something there for those two professions. Ask an engineer what they do for a living or an architect. They don't say they do engineering. I'm an engineer. I'm an
Mm.
architect. So when I say AI is going to take your job, what I'm saying is AI is going to take all your self-worth away from you. That's what I'm really saying. And so they just like shut down. And I think that is the internal struggle that people are having these days is AI good? It's not about AI taking my job. It's AI taking the definition of who I think I am.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. In construction, precision matters. Every budget line, every schedule, every document. But too often, project data is scattered across tools and departments, creating risky silos. That's where ArcDesk comes in. ArcDesk is the all-in-one construction management platform designed to connect your entire project operation, from opportunity through to tender, all the way to handover. With real-time dashboards, cost control, scheduling, procurement, and document management in one place, ArcDesk gives you complete visibility and control. Trusted by contractors, subcontractors, and asset owners worldwide, ArcDesk has powered landmark projects from shopping centers to Europe's tallest buildings. If you're ready to reduce risk, protect your margins, and deliver projects with confidence, discover ArcDesk today. Visit arcdesk.com, that's ARCH desk.com, and see how leading firms are building smarter with ArcDesk. KP, I'm glad to
Hey,
be chatting with the second best content producer in the AEC industry.
have we checked our YouTube subscriber count lately?
I actually think we're pretty close. I honestly didn't look
Are
before this call. I need to well, maybe I didn't look on purpose because for a certain
yeah.
reason, but I will check out.
Uh,
We will find out.
How many of your guests are this competitive?
None. And we're not competitive with them either. Yeah, how's it going? I heard you last time we chatted, you were in Atlanta and now you're in San Francisco. Why the
Yeah, I moved
move?
here. I moved. So, I'd say like 4 years ago, I started seeing this pattern, right? I always tell people in VC, if you're following everyone else's hypotheses and patterns, you're doing it wrong. You have to kind of go, that's our job, right? Is to talk to 100 founders, decide on what we think is interesting, and then go execute on it. And then sometimes people copy you, follow you, whatever. That's fine, right? There'll be a cycle of that too. Me too, kind of hype thesis stuff.
Hmm.
But I was just seeing such a pattern of consolidation of capital in the Bay Area. So this idea that venture capital can happen anywhere, not true. And then two, the founder dynamic, specifically because of AI and robotics, was really, really shifting to where you kind of can't build a company outside of the Bay Area. That used to be what people talked about, like, oh, you got to be in the Bay Area, right? If you want to be a movie star, you move to Hollywood. If you want to build a tech company, you move to the Bay Area. Then I think between the pandemic and some other things, I think the capital light movement of building startups, which I've never 100% agreed with, but it was a thing, um, made people feel like they could start a startup anywhere. Meaning like, oh, I can raise a $500,000 in my backyard and I can build a startup and scale it because it's capital light. So I started seeing a shift back to the capital heavy tech founder focus, big idea movement. And I told my wife, I was like, I really believe this. If I was going to stay in venture capital, we needed to move, like full stop. And so last year we spent like 6 weeks on, 6 weeks out, kind of looking for neighborhoods.
Mm,
It's important that your family's happy, especially the way I work, right?
fair enough. Yeah.
So that's why we moved.
Yeah, sounds good. What do you think about, you mentioned this capital light just now. What do you
Mhm.
think about it? Definitely since we last chatted, this topic has come up a little bit more in the tech world. Seed scaling. Are you familiar with the term? Yeah. What's your views? I'm very curious.
So I think what's happening, right? Like, look, I think we've gone even more capital light. If you think about like vibe coding and different things, just this pace at which you can build something. Maybe so much so that the customer doesn't need the product anymore. In other words, I can go buy XYZ product for $300 a month, or I might just be able to build it, right? So I think what's happening is maybe we've become so capital light that the customer doesn't need a software provider because they can do it themselves, right? Um, and then I think on the scaling side, the thing that startups get very frustrated by is like they say the goalposts have moved, right? So for me to like go from seed to Series A, right? You need to be about 5 million in recurring right now if it's going to be on the basis of revenue. Otherwise, you have to invent some magic, right? You have to be Anthropic. You have to be someone like that. So I think that's what's happening. And I think sometimes the construction tech founders are in denial on this,
Mm. So in denial on what specifically?
that they're competing with Lovable and Replit and Cursor, that these hyperscaling companies that somehow like, well, no, we're construction tech. It doesn't work like that. And I'm like, well, what you're saying is your company's not venture fundable. If you can't get
Mm.
to 5 million in recurring in 18 months or maybe 6 months, you maybe aren't venture fundable right now.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. So then maybe that comes back to the whole idea. And maybe construction is a good industry for it on seed scaling. So my understanding of the definition is that people raise a seed round and then they just build let's say a lifestyle business, yeah? Like a
Okay.
generates dividends for them. Blah, blah, they're happy, they have a nice family and relatively stable
Yeah,
business.
100%.
Um, maybe this is a perfect industry for it.
But that's what I try to talk. I talk to 25 founders a week. 26 of them I'm trying to talk out of taking venture capital
Mm,
because it doesn't, I kind of tell them like exactly to your point, if I can build something that generates a couple million in revenue and I'm not sharing it with my VCs, right? I own the whole cap table. And so I'm making a 500,000 a year. Are you gonna turn that down?
yeah, it's not bad. Got a
It's not
family,
bad.
live in a nice place. You probably have a very, very
Yeah,
comfortable living way of life.
100%. It's not
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
by the
yeah.
way, let's think about like construction industry psychology, right? Why do people go into the construction industry? Why do they get the degrees they get and go into the industry? It's because they like safe. They like safety, right? You get an engineering degree because there's always engineering jobs. If you want to take a lot of risk, go get an art history degree. There's a lot of risk in an art history degree. Engineering, though, being the kid of an Indian father, right, that was also a civil engineer. Nope, engineer or doctor. Why is that? It's because you can always get a job, right? There's always something there for those two professions. So the immediate selection bias happens when you get a college degree and then you go into an industry that's very safe. You don't hear about 30% layoffs at some construction company. You don't
Mm,
hear you rarely hear about a construction company going out of business. It's very rare. And most of those people, when they go out of business, they get a job the next day. So you create a pattern of psychology that's all very safe. And then you're like, I'm going to go do a construction tech startup. I'm going to go get venture funding. Like
Yeah.
maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe you should do a seed scale startup, right?
Yeah, that's
I mean, do we
fascinating
need
to see.
another punch list app?
I
Probably
don't.
not. Can you sell $1 million a year of punch list apps to some segment of the market? Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've never heard this before about safety of the construction industry. And I'm trying to think about like the big successes we've had in the industry and how many of these founders were from construction. Maybe that's a bit of a wonky way to look at it, but
Don't you think you start to reflect your customers at some point? You spend enough time in the industry, you start to reflect your customers.
they're true. Asset
They're risk
managers.
averse, very slow. They don't take risks. You start to say things that you start to reflect what your customers are saying. Like, oh, let's take a look at that. Maybe we'll do a pilot. Then in 3 months, so they're moving at this cadence. And as a tech founder, you're like, oh, okay, sounds good. Versus like, no, that's not okay. Like, let's do a pilot today. You're not going to get anywhere, right? So you start to reflect the cadence of your customers and their own risk aversion. And let's start building a company that way. And then you're shocked that you're not experiencing massive growth.
Okay, let's talk about. I think you hinted on this the hype term vibe coding, whereby people are maybe not willing to pay $300 for a subscription anymore, but could build it themselves. I have an issue with that because I think that this comes up a lot on Bricks and Bytes, and maybe you weren't referring to AEC companies. I think maybe you were because we were on an AEC technology
Mhm.
podcast here. But these companies are not software companies. So how are they to manage? How can they manage? Well, they'll talk about it generally and then maybe answer the question of
Yeah,
your
yeah.
thoughts on how they
So
manage that aspect.
let, let's talk about what is an LLM, which everyone gets wrong. I think everyone gets wrong mostly. An LLM has been a next step to getting our brain closer to the compute, right? My mom started as a programmer doing punch cards. So she had to take whatever she was thinking and put it into a punch card and put it into a mainframe, right? And then she went into COBOL, and then we had command line programming, and then we started setting up, Windows interfaces, right? All these steps, keyboards and mouse. It was all about how do we get the human brain closer to the computer, right? And what it did was we had to adapt to the computer. We had to learn Fortran. We had to learn C sharp. So we had to adapt a framework of the English language, which is a terrible language in many ways, right? It's not that precise, right?
Mm,
If you talk to any like non-English speakers, they're like, "What? Why do you have the same word for the same?" Like, it's
yeah.
not a great language, right? Like technically, right?
Hmm.
So we've had to create all this like languages for us to be able to communicate to the machines, but the machines have a certain construct that you have to follow syntax, right? You have to follow the rules. So we've adapted our ability to communicate to the computer. What LLMs has taken us that much closer to the compute. The computer now understands our stupid language and our stupid thoughts much better, right? So now you can be kind of dumb and still program a computer. That's all
Hmm.
vibe coding is, right? So to me, the people they get too caught up on like vibe coding's bad, vibe coding's good. My point is vibe coding better than having to sit down with a product manager and a product marketer and think about how much effort you put into product definition and to basically communicating what you want. If you wanted to build a product tomorrow under the old schema, let me go hire 5 people. Let me do a bunch of sticky boards. Let me go figure this stuff out. That was a process to extract from you your needs, what I call your statement of need, right? You have a statement of need. Communicate to a bunch of people that then translated those workflows and ideas into a programming language that the computer could understand. That's all.
Hmm.
So now all I'm saying is you don't need all those people in between. You can have an idea and you can vibe code. Now, is your code trash? Probably. Do you know anything about DevOps? Probably not. Do you know anything about cybersecurity? All those things are still true, right? But the power is taking from your brain. Like, you don't write code, do you? Okay. Have you ever just had like an idea to like, oh my God, I should build something that does this? You have these ideas,
Of
right?
course, yeah,
And
all
then
the
you
time.
and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, well, then I have to hire a programmer and a CTO, and I don't even know if it's gonna work. And then I've like taken a mortgage against my house to build this, to pay a team in India to build something. And oh
With a
my God, they're in
very big chance of failure as well.
right. So why not wake up? Why not get out of bed at 2 in the morning, vibe code your prototype, and when you wake up the next morning, you're like, I still like this. I still think this is a great idea. Let me go put it out there on the internet and see if people use it. It'll probably break. They'll probably have like, who cares, right? Isn't that better than a PowerPoint? I mean, PowerPoints are trash. I always tell founders, first thing I do with the founder call is they're like, hey, can I show you my deck? I'm like, I want you to, you have one shot with me. I want you to communicate your idea in the best method you can to me, because I'm not going to have a second call if I'm not interested. Founders that default to the demo instead of their deck always do better with me
Mm.
because they show me the product, right? PowerPoints are literally for dummies, right? It's, PowerPoints are like scratch pad, right? It's like a scratch pad. Like, oh, here's TAM. Like, oh, okay, TAM. Like, who cares? Like, I don't care about any of those things. Like,
14
tell me what
trillion.
you're going to build, right? Tell me what you're going to build, right? And so I think that's the power of vibe coding. Is it about production code or what I would say is great software engineers aren't going anywhere. It's all these laptop workers, the people that sit there and like, oh, let me take the ideas and put it into a user experience. And let me set up a Trello board or a Jira board to track the progress and all this bunch of bullshit artists, man. Like either you go out there and you fucking sell, or you write code. Those are the only two jobs.
Yeah.
We've created all these other dumb jobs in between that don't add any value. So I'm happy about AI taking away those dumb jobs. Smart jobs are
Yeah.
sticking around. Smart jobs are going to be around. It's all
Yeah.
the dummies that we need to get rid of.
So I think to summarize what you're saying is vibe coding has its use, and its use is very powerful in the right situations. Those situations being prototyping, product development to some extent, and getting idea from head into something people can use these things at vibe code, of
Mhm.
course, but you probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have it as your main whatever you call it, repository of code, and somewhere you see these stories, right, of was it Cursor or Lovable or someone deleting the
Yeah.
entire production database of a company. It's like, yeah, maybe you're the problem if that kind of thing
Yeah.
happens, and not
Good.
the startup.
Does anyone want to hear about the positive stories make for good clickbait? No. So we like to talk about all the negative stories. Here's what I'll tell you this. So I'm hosting this Vibeathon. I'm not plugging it. I don't think I make any money at any of my event media stuff. I really don't pay attention. I probably should pay attention.
Yeah.
But we're doing this Vibeathon. We're doing my annual summit, ninth annual summit. You can go to my website, all that stuff. But
Uh-huh.
we're doing this
You just said
Vibeathon.
you weren't plugging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't give out a URL. Am I doing a really good? If I don't give out see it in the show
Discount code.
notes. It'll be in the show. It'll be in the
Yeah.
show notes, right? But the reason I did this Vibeathon, I'm giving away $5,000 to the winner, right? I've only been inviting CEOs of AEC firms, and I've got a few now. And I'm like, hey, so and so's coming. And my point is, great CEOs are very creative. They're very creative. They have the pulse on their customer. They have the pulse on the market, and they get told no a lot, right? They walk into a meeting like,
Mm.
hey, I've got an idea, guys.
Yeah.
And then IT's like, well, cybersecurity, blah, blah. So everybody shuts them down, right? I argue that so many CEOs just are surrounded by so many no people than yes people when it comes to technology, especially in AEC. So what I've told CEOs is like, come in, I'm going to show you how to vibe code. I'm going to do a 3-part series of training online. I'm going to have a team there to help you if you have questions. But you're going to compete against other CEOs to build something in a day. And they're like, well, why don't I was like, it's great team building. Bring some of your younger people to come vibe code with you. So it'll be a good cultural thing. But also, I want you to understand all these things that people around you make it sound as so hard, how easy it might be. So when they say no to you, you can say you're fired because like I know this can be done,
Let me
right?
run this
So
prompt. I'll show you.
yeah, let me show you. I just built this. I mean, how
Yeah.
cool is it if a CEO walks into the CIO's office and say, "Hey, look what I built last night, and this is really needed." And you guys told me it was going to take a year to build.
Yeah, the CIO's sitting there sweating like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's
another position. I'm not sure should exist, but
so this
CIO.
so it's more about awareness of or
Yeah,
versus like redefining the role of the CEO.
it's more about fun. I don't have many hobbies. So
Yeah. So making CEOs vibe code is a new one.
it's fun. It's fun to me. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I like it. You mentioned, yeah, you talked about this quite a lot, and there's a discussion you had where you talked about CRM consulting companies will not be existing in 3 years. Why?
Because once again, we've taken CRMs and we've said, okay, your most creative and your best people have to adapt to mediocrity, right? Every system that is built to be deployed within a large organization is designed to serve everyone. When you build something that's designed to serve everyone, it serves no one, right? So, especially not your outliers. So, I think much like we talk about vibe, I think the personalization of like at the end of the day, right? If you're a mechanic, you come to the job with your tools in hand. The company doesn't provide you tools. Like you show up with the tools that you know, that you like, that work for you. I think that's the future. So if you're a great salesperson, you show up with the tools that help you sell. Like, would you rather have a salesperson that's really good at keeping Salesforce up to date and clean, or one that uses a piece of notebook paper and actually closes
That's
business?
of course, yep.
Right. But we don't build tools for the top performers, right? We build tools to track a good salesperson. People with high agency do not need to be managed, right?
I don't
We
need
don't build
tools really
tools for them,
either.
right? They don't really need tools, and if they do, they can vibe code their own tools.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because when you look at the industry of Salesforce, the consulting business of Salesforce is bigger than Salesforce itself. So you think that industry is like down the gutter soon?
Look, I think for large corporates, the switching costs are too high. I think specifically to our industry, other than, and I think this might even start to change, but we're a project based industry. So the switching costs are really like every time there's a new project, you have a new inroad, right? With the exception of maybe accounting, right? But you can switch off of one tool to another tool on a project. So I think I think all these ideas are in flux, and I think the people that want to sit and be negative about them will be behind. I think what I would tell people, number one trait right now is curiosity
Mm,
and optimism, and you will make billions of dollars.
mm,
If you want to question the whys and whats and whatevers, then you'll be poor.
mm. Interesting. Okay, I want to go back to the vibe coding point, and I'll move on to something. But
Yeah.
uh, well, the first question is if you were a CEO, or what maybe what when you speak to these CEOs, I know you speak to a lot of AEC companies, large companies, and
Mhm.
you're probably in amongst their pain points. What do you think they will be vibe coding at this Vibathon?
I think C levels are all going to be about dashboards and data and data aggregation, right? That, hey, we have a data lake. How do I access my data lake kind of stuff, right? Oh, I don't want to listen. It's Power BI's garbage, like it's like that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's about them getting their own data. Funny enough, I think they probably like, I've had several talk about CRMs, which is funny that they don't really have a great way to track their relationships, manage project pursuit, like all these things that they're worried about. Because most good CEOs, like, right, there's the dashboarding, manage the business part of it, right? But the great CEOs are in market every day talking to customers. And so I think they look at that and they're like, why am I tracking tasks in Salesforce? Like they don't get it, right? And so they don't really use a tool. They're not really using a tool. So I've had several talk about like actual Someone told me a couple of years ago, in the world of CRM, people have forgotten VR. There is no relationship management. It's like task management. So I think there's going to be some interesting stuff around that. Look, I think you vibe code the things that are the nearest personal problems you have going on, right? And I think for most CEOs, it's going to be about customer data, and customer management.
Mm. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and so to zoom out a little bit, then, in your discussions with, I know you do a lot with startups, you do a lot with the AEC corporate world as well. What is, apart from vibe coding, what's on the top of their mind right now? Like, what's the sort of general vibe? Oh my goodness, I'm using the word too much now. And sentiment across the industry.
What's the next business model,
Mm.
right? If you're looking at all this technology, and you see me, I kind of troll people about timesheets and timekeeping and all this nonsense that we do as an industry. Um, that's where a lot of that's coming from. CEOs don't want people to fill out timesheets any more than the people that fill out the timesheets want to do it, right? Um, and I think what they're really thriving for is, how can I simplify the business to create the maximum value for a customer, and therefore create a lot of value for customers, right? And the current system of billing for hours is not working. The current system of a GC kind of marking up all the subs isn't really working, right? So it's working okay. But if you think about backlog of work and what needs to be done, um, these are all labor arbitrage businesses. And I think they're all really struggling because they know all this technology when they have me in their ear whispering, chatting at them. But they do know that all this technology has to lead to an endpoint that changes the business model itself. And that's what keeps them up at night. I've had multiple CEOs tell me that they feel like they're going to wake up one morning and Autodesk is going to be competing with them. Hey, we've taken all your design data and we built an AI tool. Now we're an AE firm, because there might be more business in being an AE firm and competing with an AECom or whoever than being a software provider.
Mm-hmm. And they've got the
And
data. It's kind of scary to
and
think
they've got
about.
all the I mean, the reality. I'm sure I'll get a text from Andrew, but um, like, I don't think that's a reality, right? I don't think that's a reality because they're a public company, right? Thing with public company dynamics and how you think about things is very different than um, you know, than than being a private company. If they're a private company, you know, maybe you should be worried, right? If they're a public company, they don't know how to make moves. They can't make moves like that, even if they know how to. But they do worry. That's what they're worried about, right? They're worried about, you know, if Tesla gets so good at construction, right? If Elon Musk gets so good at construction, why is he not good at SpaceX the entire industry? I mean, he
Because
already does he does all his own construction already, right? He just has to wait. All that guy has to do is wake up one morning and decide he wants to be in the construction industry.
okay, I would say I have a view on this. Um, so I get it. Yeah, it sounds cool. But why would Elon Musk? Okay, I don't know. I really don't know what kind of margins his business makes, and so on and so forth. Guessing is okay, but I'm guessing it's a multiple higher than running a traditional construction company. So why would someone like that decide? You know what? Yeah, let me go and own construction.
Because they get pissed off at how bad it's working. When you already have all that money, right? It's not money, right? It is, this isn't right, right?
Mm,
This is not working. I need to fix it, is what it comes down to, right? And I don't think anyone can argue that we don't have lots of problems in our industry, right? I don't think there's an argument to be made that says we have or we're free of problems, right? But I think a lot of people they do worry. CEOs are worried about these things, right? But overnight, I also think back to the earlier conversation about it being a conservative industry. There is so much personal ego and self worth
mm.
attached to the work. So when I tell you that, hey, I can use an AI podcasting host, I don't need you. If you're very attached, I'm sure when you were 6 years old, you did not grow up to say, I'm going to be a podcaster. Or when you're in college, you're like, I'm going to be a podcaster. So you're
Of
doing
course not.
this, but but is it in your bones? Maybe not, right? Maybe it's seeping into your bones.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to college and you do all these things and your personal self-worth, ask an engineer what they do for a living or an architect. They don't say they do engineering. I'm an engineer. I'm an
Mm.
architect. So when I say AI is going to take your job, what I'm saying is AI is going to take all your self-worth away from you. That's what I'm really saying, right? And so they just like shut down, right? And I think that is the internal struggle that people are having these days is AI good? It's not about AI taking my job. It's AI taking the definition of who I think I am.
Mm. The sense of purpose that you have within the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the answer then?
The answer is you're misguided. The answer is we don't design and build hospitals. We provide patient care.
Mm.
We don't design and build schools. We're educating our children. If you shift your mission to the actual work we do, which is shaping society, which is what we do. This is what we do, right? We're not in the business of are we responding to RFIs or are we building a school? Are we shaping children?
Sadly, responding to our advice.
Yeah. So I hope that if people can elevate their thinking of purpose beyond I respond to RFIs or I'm a structural engineer and really get back to the core, like I always say, like civil engineering, I could look up the definition of it, right? It has very little to do with doing shop drawings. Um, and so I think if we can extract ourselves from this lower order thinking, get back to first principles of why we do what we do as an industry, then that fear of AI and all kind of goes away. Like then you get focused on the right things.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I think that, yeah, maybe this is like an argument I've seen come up again. With AI and tools that exist, you just let the builders become builders again. Like they're not drowned in all this menial activity that goes on either side of them of their sole output, which is to build buildings or improve people's lives, improve society, wherever it might be. Um, I think that's the
So
angle that you're coming at this from.
I think the reason, right, the reason I have clarity around these things is I went through the same thing.
Mm.
Am I a capital allocator? Am I a VC? Am I a founder? Like I stopped thinking about all those things, right? I second generation civil engineer. My mission is to leave this world much better than I entered it. That's all. Now, can I do it with scale because I have 28 portfolio companies and I have all these things I'm doing and I have capital and access to capital? That gives me more scale to actually execute, on what I'm doing. And that's how I look at it. Like I think you have to be very mission oriented to be these days. I think you've always had to be mission oriented, but I think mission and core values is all that matters right now. And I think it got stuck in the noise with all this other stuff, right?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Here's an open question. And if you're someone who is like really digesting what you're saying and thinking, yeah, I'm gonna rethink my mission and core purpose because maybe I know you didn't use the word job necessarily, but say my job is at risk of AI. Like, how would you go about thinking about that? Would you like go back to your core self and go and get a job like doing something which is, I don't know, maybe you don't want to be a construction manager or a site manager, PM, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you go back to your like purpose and your core values, and then you decide how does your job get you there, right? How does your job get you there um, versus hey, this is the job I have, and I'm trying to shape my job to get me there, right? And I think the most excitement I have around AI and robotics, and I'm going to put them together constantly, is I believe this, right? So I could be wrong. I'll probably die before I'm proven wrong, right? But I do think what we're going to see is how we think about society. We're going to go back to there's going to be capital allocators, people who's earn money because they have money, right? And then I think you're going to have deep expertise. You're going to have people that are deep levels of expertise and creativity out there. And then after that, I think you're going to have what I call the exception handlers. The exception handlers are the people that do all the things that the robots and AI can't do, which is not going to be the best jobs, right? Um, so if you start looking at
Yeah.
those kind of that future, right, and think about it that way, then all you have left is kind of what is my mission and vision, right? Because the jobs will look different. And so if you want to be a deep expertise person, you really have to go deep on a topic. You don't get to be a generalist anymore.
Mm, mm. That's interesting. And then the question maybe is, what's the point in humans anymore? 'Cause then they're just like the robots will start generating everything. The exception handlers, to your term, they'll start
Mhm.
generating the
Yeah.
output of the exception handlers, AI and robotics, and then that's the next like dinosaurs of the world.
Yeah, maybe.
Here we go. Hey,
I'm
what do
just
you?
I'm just moving towards, just being a full-time capital allocator.
Your life and soul mission, your soul purpose. uh, do you find being a VC capital allocator a fulfilling job, fun?
It's fun because of my founders. If you ask me what my markup on the last investment I don't know. I have someone I can ask for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I really don't focus on that stuff that well. I feel like for me, for most founders, that I am truly 100% in their corner, and 100% I want to see them successful, um, with or without me. What I'll tell you is right now, I probably talk to more of my founders about quitting than to keep going because I've seen it, right? I've seen it in my own life. Like 5 years flies by very quickly. And you just spent 5 years working on something that got you nowhere.
Mm,
And it's that sunk cost fallacy that they all suffer from, right? I had a call yesterday. I have a board meeting later today. I was talking to one of the founders. I'm like, dude, like, isn't this just too hard? Like, let's just shut it down. Like, shut it down. Go take 6 months off. Let's come up with a new idea. And maybe we can come up with a new idea that I can fund. Like, what are
mm,
we doing here? Which is maybe not the right way to be a VC. I don't know. I only know my way of
mm.
doing VC.
I've never heard that before. This is fascinating, actually.
It's not worth my time. Like I told I was like, hey, if we don't shut this down, I'm going to resign from the board. It's not even worth the 3 hours a quarter. I feel like I could be doing something differently with my time, right?
Mm,
And so, but I think where that does manifest then is as you think about teams and building teams, um, you do start to create a concentration of talent in your ecosystem, which hopefully they're the best. But more so than being the best, they're a known quantity, right? And by the way, like I was texting with the founder this morning that I'm not even an investor in. I'm like, dude, are you okay? Like, what's going on? You've been at this for a year and a half. You moved back in with your parents. Are you sure? Like, are you
mm,
sure?
yeah.
That's all. You know, ping me back if you want to do something different. If you want to make a change, I think you're very talented. I think you're not, you're chasing something that is way below your talent. I think I can put you on something where your talent could be absolutely maximized.
Mm.
So part
Yeah.
part therapist, part graybeard.
And no heavy metal t-shirt today. I noticed.
No, not today.
Yeah, no, I find it interesting. It's quite refreshing, actually. I'm not gonna lie to have that like amount, that candor and transparency, and um, maybe some people think it's quite extreme, like to be asking those questions, but maybe you're zooming out and looking at people's core purpose and value in life, and like even from a perspective of their quality of life, like moving in with parents doesn't sound too appealing. Maybe you want to have a family, etc. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah. Very nice. Okay, let's go on to some more topics about AI. And I'm very curious on your full Scopia about token-based pricing models. Is this good for anyone?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Okay.
I think in the day in the world of what am I worth, right? I have two units of measurement of how I charge people, right? Hours times rate. That is the rubric. And so even project-based firms, they distill it down to hours times rate.
Hmm.
So if all you are is labor arbitrage, right? And you say things like, well, I have so much more value, I have so much more IP, and I have all these things. I think there's no better way to monetize your IP, your unique talent, but through tokenization. And so I think that the misnomer when and this started from it actually started from that dumb MIT report. I used to want to go to MIT. I don't think I want to go. Like, this
I was
report, like,
seeing you posting about this all week.
so it started with this whole MIT report. And I was like, the problem is they're using the wrong units of measurement, right? They're saying productivity, and productivity is a function of your hours. And those hours have a scarcity because they operate under a time domain, right? You can't go back in time and rent a hotel room that sat empty yesterday, right? You can't sell an hour that was burned yesterday. And so when we talk about productivity gains, we always want to default to hours as a measure for it. But AI does not work on a time domain, right? That's not the unit measure. So I'm like, okay, great. We're comparing weight to length. And we're saying, oh, it doesn't work. It's like, of course it doesn't work. We're not standardized on the same unit of measurement. So if you flip it around and say, like, hey, how many tokens is this costing you right now? Right. It's different, right? Like, what's my token value to be on your show versus someone else?
Hmm.
Based on our YouTube follower count, like, I think I get hired, I get a
Pretty
lot of
high.
tips.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very costly to have you here.
It's very expensive, very expensive, very, very expensive. But
Yeah.
so I think that that's where it came from, right? And I think, and then a friend of mine was doing a little project, like helping an executive write a resume that had never written a resume because they just hadn't had to, and they used some AI tools to develop it. But really, what they did is they interviewed the person, really got a sense of their ethos, because at this level, it's a different type of resume, right?
Hmm.
And then used AI to help iterate, right? Be a writing partner, so to speak, and then develop it. And I said, well, how many tokens did you use in the AI and with the AI? Like, how many tokens did you use? And they're like, I have no idea. I'm like, well, you should charge per token, right? Because it's the cost of the token with your value add around the token to develop the right prompt, to iterate and go back and forth. So you should charge per token.
Hmm. But then you run into this gray area of, okay, yeah, how much is a token of KP's time worth? How much is one of Owen's time worth? And then like you've got to negotiate. But then isn't that
That's not true.
effectively what currency is? No?
That's what free markets are for. That's what free markets are for,
What do you mean?
right?
Explain that.
If I go on to Fiverr or TaskRabbit or any of these web online tools, right?
Mm.
Doesn't the market dictate what a token is worth? That's what happens with that. I mean, look, hourly rate, the rate of an hour, right, is driven by two things, right? Capacity of that talent in the market, the supply essentially of that talent in the market,
Mm.
right? And the specialization, right? It's really a specialization thing. If I need someone that's a junior content writer, that's a commodity. I pay $25 an hour, right? It's like not even a thing, right? But if I'm looking for a seismic expert that works on dams in certain soils, I should charge a higher rate for that because there's scarcity, right? So it's all about scarcity. How is that any different than a tokenized system where as a free market, I can
I see
choose
what
who
you're
I want
saying.
to work with and what their
Uh-huh.
token rate is. In
Uh-huh.
fact, it's
Uh-huh.
easier. It's easier to run a market that way.
Uh-huh. But there would be some testing in the first instance to work these things out.
Yeah. the big thing is as the LLMs get better, right, as the AI gets better, you are now pushed to create even more value because if someone says, if this same person 6 months from now says, I just talked to ChatGPT and it interviewed me and it created a resume for me, and that cost me 20 tokens, I'm not going to hire a person. Like I'm not
Yeah.
going to pay for that value add on top of the token.
Mm. So what's the point you're making there?
That I think if we really want to think about AI, we have to stop thinking about human productivity in hours.
Mm.
Take that out of the way and really make it in a world of infinite hours, right? So unleash the scarcity problem. Now, is there a scarcity problem with AI? Sure, whatever, power and all those things, right? Great, right? There is some headroom to supply of the bits and bytes of AI, right? But we're not there yet. I'm ignoring that possibility. But what I am saying is that if I can buy 1 million tokens to design a bridge in 6 hours, how does that relate to a structural engineer spending 6 months and so many hours to design a bridge, right? So take the time domain out of it, and then you start to really understand what the value system is.
Mm. Okay, interesting. I honestly will have to admit, I wish I prepared a little bit more to have this deep discussion with you on this part, but I'll do some homework and come back to you. Um,
Okay.
KP, tell us. Okay, yeah, here's an interesting one. You mentioned egos earlier, and maybe this is touching on this point here. So, in a geotechnical firm that rejected a
Mhm.
90% gross margin data business out of fear of cannibalizing their 70% gross margin core. Like, why? Isn't that a bit stupid?
Yeah. Right. It's being stuck, right? Because look, this is another one of my ego theories, right? Why do CEOs want everyone back in the office? They want them back in the office because they want to walk through the lobby. They want to walk past the cube farms and the offices. And this is my kingdom.
It doesn't
Look
feel
at
the
what
same when no one's in there, right? And you're walking down the corridors. Like, oh.
this is me. Like, look at what I own and rule, right? That's why. That's the only reason why. Why does
Okay,
Jamie
I can see
Dimon
this.
why does Jamie Dimon want everyone in the office? He wants to walk floor by floor with his 3 assistants that follow him around and say, I'm Jamie Dimon. Look at me. Right? I have the name on I have the company name on the building. Right? That's the biggest driver. So I think that trickles down. Right? Trickles down to when I say, here's a company that's really high margin that can scale really well, and you don't need as many people. How does that feel to the CEO? One, maybe all these people around them are their friends and they feel bad. That's fair. That's a human condition too, guilt. But also, like, then what am I running? How do I tell people when I'm at a dinner party, I'm the CEO of a 10,000 person company? It doesn't feel as good.
Social status. Mm. Yeah. So the point here is that that yeah, the craving and desire to look or increase or improve your social status is a blocker to business model disruption within AEC, maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Versus, so think about this. Think about call it Gen Z, millennials, whatever, the people much younger than me. They actually have hobbies. They actually have a lot less definition around who they are against what they do, right? Like, I don't think I could ever be an Uber driver.
Mm.
I mean, if I had to, I would, right? But it's like, what am I going to tell my friends that I'm doing an Uber driver? I don't think this younger generation, I don't think they care. It's like, if you ask them what they're into, they rarely bring up work, right? They talk about sports, they talk about this. If you ask
Mm.
my older kids what's going on, and they'll talk to you about Formula One. They'll tell you everything about what's going on with Formula One right now. Right? They'll tell you about everything that's going on with the NFL season starting, right? Like,
UFC.
so I think that you have a generation coming in that doesn't care about it. Their ego and status is not tied to work.
Yes.
Now it's tied to things. It's like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
I want
yeah.
to I want to buy a BMW M5, but how I made the money to do that, I don't care. Like that's nobody's business, and it's not important.
Mm. Ah, generational shift. Makes
Yeah.
sense, I suppose. And you also mentioned about spin-offs, so like bigger companies starting like big. Let's use the context of AC here, but like a large AC company starting a smaller company.
Mhm.
Um, does this come up with in like conversations
Yeah.
that you have? Yeah.
No, I've been doing that for about 12 years now.
Mm. Yeah. How does
So
that work?
I help. Yeah. So my biggest kind of case study is Thornton Tomasetti. I helped them spin out 6 companies. One was like extremely successful. The other ones were okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so think about money, right? If you just think about money and risk, it's very difficult if you're an engineering firm or an architecture firm or a construction company to deploy the amount of capital necessary to do a startup, right? So they come up with some idea. Unfortunately, most of the ideas I would say are the what I call the market of one ideas. Like they're the only customer for it, and there's no market benefit to it. Where some of them do, like I said, I've been doing this for gosh, 10, 12 years now. Where they do have an idea, and it's like it's a big idea, it's an interesting idea, right? But they don't have the right people, right? They don't have the startup people around them, and they don't have the capital to deploy, right? They don't have the capital to say, okay, well, let's throw well, think about this. Let's throw $5 million at something, right? If you reverse the math for a general contractor, how much construction volume does a contractor have to do
Mm.
to net $5 million?
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot,
A lot. Yeah.
right? A lot, right? So I kind of come in and say, okay, let's look at this. Okay, I think there's a pretty interesting market there. You don't have the right kind of capital. You don't have the long term high risk capital. You've already put in some of that. I'll put some money in and I'll incubate it, sometimes personally, right? And then I'll find a team to take it to the next level when it's appropriate, right? So we'll incubate these. I call them the co-creation model. So
Mm.
I do a good bit of that. I'm doing one right now that's in stealth mode. That's probably I don't know, $1 trillion opportunity.
Mm.
It's a very big idea.
Uh,
We'll be
Is
in stealth mode probably for 2 years.
Are they software companies or are they like consulting or another field within the industry?
So it's another good thing to talk about. So the world is changing, right? The world is changing. So we think about venture capital and we think about private equity, right? And I use the term brackish waters, right? So brackish waters are where the rivers meet the sea, right? That weird area where it's partly salt, but it's not 100% salt, and certain species thrive there. It's this in between spot. So I look at the oceans as venture capital, right? High risk, very turbulent. If you get to the other side, it's tough, right? And I look at like lakes and rivers as private equity, pretty consistent, very comfortable type of thing. And what you're seeing is this new entryway of what I've termed brackish waters, which is VC meets PE. And so the reason this is happening, quite honestly, is because of AI and robotics. And I think, this is what I'm working on. I have been working on for the last 2 years, is building out this business model and bringing in capital partners and different things that I've done. So I've been working on a lot of things, right? So I have a whole team in stealth mode that's working on this. So the question for our industry is, are you better off selling structural engineering software to structural engineers, or are you better off being a structural engineering firm?
Mhm.
Because a structural engineering firm used to be a PE play, right? So there's plenty of PE firms that buy engineering firms, and that's fine, right? So what does a PE firm do? They come in, they optimize, they centralize, they put some professionalism, whatever that is, bunch of MBAs, right? They professionalize the business and they sit in it for 5 years, try to grow it enough, and then they sell it to the next PE firm. That's what PE does, right? VC We put capital in, it's all risk capital. Either it goes somewhere or it doesn't, right? And we look at a liquidity event. So we're much more balance sheet focused. So then the question becomes with AI, if I have AI that can make you 100x more productive as an engineer, why would I sell that to you? Because two things happen.
Yeah.
One, you're like, I don't want it. I'm not sure. I don't know. Like all the resistance, right? And then you're going to want to pay me $300 a month. So you're not going to pay me any real money. So instead of doing that, why not just buy structural engineering firms? So my first case study right now that's out in the open, so it's not, we're not breaking any news right now, is we invest in a company called Lumina. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah. I actually saw the announcement.
Yeah.
Electrically operated excavators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in your backyard. They're London based, right?
Yeah.
So right now, EV based earth moving equipment. And then next year, probably semi to fully autonomous earth moving equipment. So what we're doing there is instead of saying, oh, let's replace your Caterpillar, Kubota, whatever, your yellow iron with our new beautiful white iron, because it is a beautiful, I got to drive it. I got to
Nice.
drive it. My 3-year-old, there's actually some pictures Ahmed posted with my 3-year-old. So my 3-year-old's like, Papa's buying a
That's cool.
bulldozer.
That's a 3-year-old's
I was like,
dream, man.
like the coolest, like he doesn't understand what venture capital is. It's boring, but Papa bought a bulldozer. It's very cool. And he got to sit in my lap and drive the bulldozer.
Nice.
Even
That's
better,
how you
right?
get him to follow in Daddy's footsteps for sure.
Papa buys bulldozers. So, so what Ahmed's doing is saying like, hey, I'm not going to go compete with Caterpillar. So what we're doing is we're buying contractors. We're buying grading contractors. And we're saying we're going to go buy a company that's doing 100 million in revenue in earth moving, right? They're probably not making a ton of margin. They have a bunch of Caterpillar equipment there. We can sell off all their Caterpillar equipment or Kubota or any of them, right? And then we sell it all off. We deploy our capital. Our capital and our technology in there. And then we have a next generation grading contractor that's fully autonomous. So that's our first foray into this, right? So even the check sizes we wrote are way, way, way bigger than we've ever done. We're continuing to put more capital in it. But it's a very different model because can you imagine us trying to sell EV autonomous bulldozers to a contractor? Goes nowhere. So that's our first step into this in a big way, right? In a honestly, very stressful way because it's probably the biggest checks we've written ever. But now we're partnered with a lot of capital allocators, right? So I'm saying there's this brackish water. I have the venture capital stack, which is high risk. And then we have other capital allocators on PE. It's kind of to the order of 10 billion that I've now created partnerships with that I'm now bringing like, hey, we just built this really cool AI-based architectural design software. And not just on the design side, it could be anything, right? It could be accounting, it could be whatever. And so let's just go buy a bunch of architecture firms. Let's just go buy a bunch of engineering firms. That's what I'm doing. Because I'm fairly unconvinced that if you have transformative tech, that selling into the market is the right answer. It's probably go be the market. And then in 5 years, you can build a business that's doing 400 or 500 million in revenue that have the financial characteristics of a venture-backed company.
Makes sense. So it's like almost like a hybrid between the two is what you're describing as far as I'm aware, yeah?
Yep.
Whereas traditional PE would maybe use tech that exists within the external market to improve the operation of a business. This tech is actually proprietary and internal to the company, but facilitates potential for larger scale across the companies that they purchase. Yeah.
So when I'm going to my capital partners and saying, hey, in 1 year, we'll be doing 150 million in revenue with the growth characteristics around margin expansion, et cetera, as a tech company. What do you do with the seed stage company that's going to do 200,000 in ARR in a year?
I'll leave that to you to decide.
So,
Nice.
so I think by the way, the second part of that is I think you're going to see some massive consolidation in construction tech,
Mm,
I'm putting I'm putting some capital around that too. I think it's the right thing. I think there's too many construction tech companies. They create some value to the industry, to the market, to a customer, but they're really just features.
mm.
They're really
Do
just
you-
features. I mean, they're not going to exist alone.
yeah. It sounds like we'd have to be quite specialist. I don't. Maybe you correct me here, but I'm not sure you could go and replicate like a general contractor with some kind of toolkit, software, hardware, whatever it might be. Like you could in the example that you gave, Lumina Robotics. Like it's
Mhm.
the market that's being targeted there is a lot more specific subcontractor level, trade contractor level versus like large general contractor level. Am I
Yeah,
right?
I don't need to replicate it. I just need to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
Just buy them, right? So can I go buy? I'm looking at one right now, a $500 million general contractor. And we look at the points, right? We look at how are they doing pre-con? How are they doing marketing? I mean, all those things. How are they doing subcontractor management? How are they using AI to manage subcontractor risk? Right? All these things.
Mm.
I can absolutely, I can absolutely double their margins in 3 years, triple their margins in 3 years, probably,
Yeah.
and unleash capacity.
Ah,
That's the other
okay.
thing,
Yeah, yeah. Because you're building the
right?
tech to do
That's
that. This is where I
oh
think I'm
yeah,
misunderstanding. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Vibe coding it.
I don't know if you saw my recent announcement of my new CTO, but
Oh no, no, I was gonna say watch out
yeah,
because I'm gonna vibe code a competitor.
no, he's
Sounds.
probably like top five in the world, machine learning, computer vision.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, most people have said, "How did you get him?" I'm like, "Well, I gave him his first job out of college, so that's how I got him."
Ah,
So he's been a
nice. Yeah.
long time friend, and super excited to be working with Barry again. So it's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Nice.
but I
Congrats.
I really do think this is the future, right? And you're seeing it, right? You're seeing it in accounting, you're seeing it in legal. If you say that, so take a step back and think about this. If we believe AI, its biggest impact will be actually on the kind of white collar jobs, then you should go after the industries that have the highest number of white collar jobs: accounting, legal, engineering, architecture. These are all like, and then if you say like, okay, well, in the blue collar world where there's scarcity, you can't find enough people, then it's all about robots.
Mm-hmm.
That's why on my LinkedIn profile it says AI design buildings, robots build buildings.
Mm-hmm.
5 years, 5 year trajectory to that.
Let's see. We'll follow up in 5 years. Last one. Last one then. Okay. Why
Okay.
is change management nonsense?
I think change management is something where if you know what your end state is, you can have change management to an end state, right? Generally, in the worlds we're working in now, where things are going, you don't know what the end state is. So when you think about your world, what does your podcast look like in 5 years? Don't know, right? You don't know. What's the economic model? Don't know. And I think a lot of people get focused on what they do is they use change management as words to basically say to basically say, oh, we have to go through this change and to signal to their employees that there's this change coming, right? But if you look at every change management plan, except for tactical, right? Except for tactical, like, oh, we have a product update and we moved the button from the top right to the left, or we embedded it in the menu, right? Those are all simple things. That's hardly like change management. But when you think about enterprise change management, what you're really doing is telling your people, you need to adapt to this new thing. If you have to work that hard at change management, you might have the wrong people. Like you never hear startups talk about change management. Never.
Mm, don't need it.
It's like, oh, we're
Just
doing this today, right?
exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the nonsense is I feel like there's an entire consulting industry and lots of PowerPoints being created to develop change management strategies. And the worst part is I'm seeing them in AI, and I'm like, you're building a change management plan around AI when you can't tell me what the end state is. If you don't know what the end state is, it's everybody just needs to be flexible and malleable. And so I think it's kind of a crutch used by large companies that really want to resist change. Oh, we can't deploy your software without a change management plan. It's like what you're saying is kind of made up. Like what you're saying is you just don't want to change.
Mm. Mm.
So create a PowerPoint to convince me to change.
Or maybe the software isn't good enough. Because if a
It probably
software was
isn't.
compelling, yeah, then like you're going to be like, right, yeah, guys, we can roll this out tomorrow. Like, no issues. Well, KP, I'm afraid we're at the end of time. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll let you plug one thing. Go on.
I don't really have, I mean, all I really have is my annual summit, ninth annual summit in Phoenix on October 29th. Go to kpready.co to learn about it. It's going to be good. We're going to be talking about all these topics. We don't really do speakers, and I think we do sponsors, but I don't think I let my sponsors even attend. I don't know. It's like, I'm just like anti all that stuff. Like, I don't want sponsors shaping content at all. And I don't want a bunch of people infomercialing their products. So all the topics are basically curated by me, but we're going to have a special guest, one of the top VCs in the world, that we're going to be talking about this transition to kind of AI services companies, AI roll-ups, et cetera, in a very detailed way, right? So not like, tell me what you're saying, but I think the conversations we're going to have at Summit are going to be one of those ones where you have a competitive edge, right? It's going to be meaningful. It's not going to be a bunch of bullshit stuff like what Built Worlds does or anything like that.
Yeah, nice. Cool, man.
I hope they're not one of your sponsors.
Yeah, we'll just beep that bit out. It's fine. All right, thanks,
It's
man.
kind of funny. I was on a podcast with Procore, and I was like, "You guys know I talk trash about you." They're like, "Yeah, we're fine. We're fine with that." I'm like, "Okay,
Fair enough. Cool. All right, thanks, KP.
all right, man. All right, I'll see you."